everybody? How's it hanging? How's it happening? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. Hey, everybody, it is Thursday. It is the 19th of May, and I'm probably down in like Rockville right now going nuts because it's Welcome to Rockville week, but that doesn't mean the podcast stopped. No, we keep on rolling. So before we jump in, I want to thank our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Phoenix Fitness. Yeah, like I'm saying, I'm at Rockville right now, so we're going to be moshing for 4 straight days. So if I'm going to be able to do that, I have to have my fitness level at a certain point. So I'm always in the gym, lifting, doing as much cardio work as possible, making sure I achieve all those fitness goals I want, and you can too. I mean, that's what we're here for, healthy lifestyle, baby. But one of the other important things too is prepare right and recover right to make sure that you maximize on achieving those fitness goals and you don't feel that burnout or get motivated because, maybe just the soreness might hit it. That's where Phoenix Fitness comes in to help you with many different types of supplements to help you achieve those fitness goals and maximize your workouts. Different pre-workouts, B7 recovery compounds to help you absorb the nutrients in your muscle after your workout. Creatine to help you build muscle. Different protein blends to help you build muscle. AM protein, PM protein, your regular whey protein post-workout. Collagen blend protein, plant-based blend protein, different multivitamins, literally anything you might need to achieve your fitness goals, Phoenix Fitness has for you. So our listeners get 15% use the code MSOTD at FXFit.com's website. Link description of the podcast below. Our second sponsor is Our second sponsor is a brand called Custom Debuts. So what Custom Debuts does is they make custom posters around anything in music that you want. So here's how it works. I just recently saw Caskets the night before I shot this. So let's use Caskets as an example. I give them the name of the band. Then I have a chance to give them either an album name or a song name. I got to give them the album Lost Souls or I give them a song like Falling Apart. And what they'll do is they'll create a custom poster for me based off that information. So off of the album artwork, off the track listing, off of just the lyrics of the song, and they put the lyrics on a poster in a cool way. Who knows what might happen, but it is possible for them to do that. They will come back through the approval 48 hours of what they think you might like, and you can make as many adjustments as possible until you're satisfied. And when you do, you can have that sent to you on normal poster paper, as a freaking canvas print, or as an aluminum sign. You can be the coolest person with the coolest custom poster in your office, in your garage, in your dorm room, in your bedroom, in your basement, in your car, anywhere you want to put that poster. So yeah, you can have people be like, where'd you get that poster? And you can be like, Custom Debuts, bitch. The only one that has one because, well, it's custom. So our listeners get 10% off. Use the code CPP10 at checkout at Custom Debuts website. So check that out. Link description of the podcast. I also want to make sure you guys know we are sponsoring the When We Were Hungry Festival. Yes, We Were Hungry Festival happening in Las Vegas, October 20th and 21st of 2022, turning memes into dreams. We got bands already that are set to play that show, like Modern Day Escape, Saving Vice. Both bands have been on the podcast before. A Skylit Drive is playing. Scarlett O'Hara. Dropout Kings are going to be there. Along Came a Spider, also on the podcast. And a good amount more. So get tickets. Go to We Were Hungry Fest. Pancakes in the Pit, turning memes into dreams. Website for the festivals in the description of the podcast. So go check that out because you know who's going to be serving pancakes in the pit. Me. So yeah, come mosh with me, everybody. Oh yeah. So now let's go to our feature presentation. So I want to thank Brian from MVK Music Group because I got a message from him basically, introducing me to Jennifer Bartlett from the band Lokella. They have a brand new album called As We Unravel coming out on May 13th, which is already out by the time this podcast comes out. So go and stream and listen to it right after this podcast because we talk about a bunch of different fun things along with going in depth into the inspiration behind this album and its meaning of really letting your true self come out after having to deal with and go through many different instances in life where things might not be going your way and different influences might be, impacting you negatively. So this is a fun, in-depth conversation you don't want to miss. Plus, you don't want to miss out on Lokella. So are you guys ready? I am. Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. I want to thank Brian from MVK Music Group once again because he's connected me with so many great bands, and pretty much the week prior to this, he's like, okay, here's another one for you to check. I'm like, oh, okay, let's go check it out. Let's have some fun. So bing, bang, boom, here we are. This band has their debut LP called As We Unravel. It's coming out on May 13th, 2022, so it probably will be out by the time this podcast releases. So right after this episode, go and check it out. Go listen to it. But beforehand, let's enjoy a conversation with Jennifer from the band Lokella. So Jennifer, welcome to Chord Progression Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here, and I hope that full-on intro was proper for the stature of trying to make this album sound as big as it is.
You know, the only thing I would add is like maybe the Rocky music. You know?
Just adding it back, just like dun, 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 dun. And then
come out with like with gloves blazing.
And in the background, or I got another idea for the video on the YouTube. I should do is like find the video, like the training montage where that song is being played, and just like have it like very like the opacity really far down, but like over the top. So it's like, what the heck's going on here? Nope, it's just Rocky.
Please. Oh, I would die to see that. Well, I don't not die. I don't want to die. I'm not ready for that yet, but you know, a little inside.
Just a little bit inside. It's just like, you know what? I'm just gonna happily die a little bit inside because that is just too good. But no, please don't die. We want you to keep making music and keep living the dream that you're living right now for as long as humanly possible, along with every other artist out there. Because one thing we realize, especially after the pandemic, man, do we need music.
No kidding, man. You just nailed that right in the head.
Well, I mean, just thinking about it too, it's like we went, like a year and a half without live music, and all of a sudden it comes back, and my thought process is, I was without this for like a year and a half. There is no way I'm taking this for granted. All of a sudden a show comes around, I'm literally like the meme of Fry from Futurama, like, take my money.
Seriously, you know, there was a point at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was falling down the rabbit hole. I was doing looking at every news source I could, trying to wrap my brain around this. And there was an article that I read probably April or May of 2020, beginning of the lockdown. And it was talking about how live music was not likely to come back until January or later of 2022. And that seemed like such a long time in my brain at that point. I was like, oh my God, what if that's true? What are we going to do? I think I'm going to die. I will literally just shrivel up and die in my house. I didn't. We're fine. But man, that sounded like so long, but now we're here. Now we're May. It's May.
Yeah, it's May of 2022, and it's like live music is in full swing. Because I still remember there was wasn't an article, but I saw it was a tweet from Franz from Attila. Because this was back in like May maybe of 2020, and they were talking about, you know, live music trying to come back later in the year, and he said something about expected to come back in fall of 2021. I'm just like, I don't want to wait. I can't. What the hell? And I mean, he was pretty close to being right, because like really things didn't get to like start picking up until July of 2021, because like I saw some shows start popping up around here, and then here in Wisconsin, Rockfest happened. I know there's another festival like the same weekend in July over in Michigan that popped up like the exact same time as well. So it was just like, okay, here are we like the test dummies here for this? Like, are we the guinea pigs for live music coming back? And then right after that, it was just like, all right, here we go.
I know. It actually, so we played a show summer of 2020 outside, and when we were offered the show, I was like, oh, this seems really irresponsible. I don't know if I'm ready for this. But it was outside, and the venue is got a very, they're very well known for just having their shit together. And so I was like, okay, well, depending on what the protocols are, maybe it's fine. And it was fine. We did get some backlash when we announced the show that we were playing. But once I think people saw how it was laid out and how safe it actually was, it went really well. It sold out. I mean, there was a limited number of tickets to be sold, but it was really good. But then I felt so bad for every band that didn't have that opportunity in 2020 or even 2021, because you don't have that everywhere. You don't have these venues doing it really the right way and looking out for the ticket holders, for the performers, for their staff members. So we really lucked out. So there was some guilt with there, but it was fine.
I mean, now that we're 2 years removed from that, and there were other bands that I saw in 2020 as well. I think there were two that I saw during the pandemic, and one was like a very similar setup like that, where it's like the space was a lot larger. There weren't that many tickets sold or available, and the protocols were in place so that, you know, the venue, like you were going to be safe at the venue as much as possible as you would be anywhere else, for the performers, for the fans, for the staff members. There was another one I went to where it was just kind of like, alrighty, we're just going to go back to being like normal. And don't get me wrong, I really like that. But the way I always looked at it was I knew that bands were going to get backlash. I talked to some of those bands and I know they got backlash from it because other bands couldn't go out and do the exact same thing. Maybe because they were, large and they couldn't have that sort of style because some of those upcoming bands that weren't going to draw like, 1,000, 2,000 people, those are going to be the ones that actually were able to pull off something like this. But on top of that, when it comes to making music, when it comes to being in a band, like this might be your sole source of income. This is your passion, this is your job, this is what you want to do. This might be how you support your family. So we had to recognize that and understand that to, get a better understanding of, this might not be the best thing, but you have to understand that sometimes this is how these artists are supporting themselves. This is how they support their families. And if they're not able to do that, what's going to happen? It's just kind of having that extra understanding and deploying compassion in that moment so that we can fully understand. It's like, yeah, it happened and they did everything proper so that to make sure that people were going to be safe in that moment. However, also understand that if you're going to give them some backlash, they got families to feed.
Absolutely. And everything is a risk, right? And so like anytime you play a show, pandemic or not, there is a risk. Maybe you don't know the venue and how well its floors are supported. Maybe you don't know if security is going to be like up to par. Maybe you don't know the area. Maybe you have no idea what the vibe is at all. Especially if you're a touring musician and you don't know what you're walking into. I mean, everything is a risk. Obviously, a pandemic is an extra risk. And especially not knowing what was going to happen with the virus being new. But we were so cautious about not getting COVID, especially because the way I pay my bills is actually at the salon through hair and makeup. I cannot socially distance from my clients when I'm physically touching them. And so the last thing I wanted to do was get sick, not know it, and then kill one of my older clients or someone who was like, had some health issues. I'm glad that I didn't, but we still got COVID just practicing, and luckily we were fine, but yeah, everything's a risk.
Everything is a risk. And on top of that as well, when we think about it as well, I mean, when it came to playing a show, you went through every single like bit of information that you had. You went through all the scenarios and all the different like responsibilities that you had, not only as musician, but when it comes to you working with other people in a salon, hair, everything around there. So you're actually, contacting people, especially during that time when most of us really didn't know what was going on. And again, you're trying to continue to find a way to continue to support your dream, but also continue to support yourself and support the people around you as well. So when it comes down to that point, it's like, yeah, that decision was made, but you have to understand, and think there's going to be a lot of other factors at play instead of just like, we want to play because we want to play. No, there's so many other factors at play, especially during that time. However, thankfully, that seems to be, gone off the table and whoo, thankfully.
Yeah, I know. Some people still are, very hesitant. I get it. But at this point, I feel like we've done so much. We've done so like everything that we in our power can do. We can't stay isolated forever.
Absolutely. I think it was, because I was listening to a podcast with John Taffer, the guy from Bar Rescue.
I love him.
Okay, this is one of like the last 2 out of 3 last podcasts I brought up John Taffer for something and everyone's just like, yeah. So thankfully, glad I watch a lot of Bar Rescue. So, but like he was on a podcast talking about during like, this was mostly for bars and nightlife and clubs and that kind of stuff, but they're going to have 3 different groups of people that are going to be returning to this stuff. The first group is like right when it's available, right when it's ready to go, they're going to go out to the bars. But think about it from live music. There's that first group that all of a sudden live music comes back and we went out there in full force. So like venues weren't selling out or anything, but you were getting a lot of people to show up where live music is positively impacting their lives on such a, immense way where this is the thing they care about the most. This thing where they feel at most at home. This is their home away from home. This is where they feel comfort. So go out and do that. Then you have the second group that we're going to wait a little bit to see how things played out. And then they would go in, and we're seeing that happen easily because now venues and shows are selling like crazy. But there still is that third group that's very, very hesitant where it's going to still take some time. But when that third group is ready to come back, if you're hesitant, when you're ready to come back, especially in the live music scene, let me tell you this, we're ready to welcome you back whenever you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I can't wait. I mean, things are going much better now than even last summer. But yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
So does that mean there's some live shows from Lokella coming up anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, we have our album release show, May 14th, Saturday, it's what's interesting about that is the venue that we typically play at when we're in home is the Pyramid Scheme. It's in Grand Rapids, and they've been awesome to us for so many years. Well, the last couple shows that we played there, actually, our first headliner back since the pandemic, we booked the show, and then I started seeing like outside of Michigan, some venues requesting, let's see, this is summer of 2021, some venues or artists requesting that all attendees show up with either a negative COVID test or to show their vaccination cards. And so I reached out to Pyramid Scheme and I said, can we do this? And they're like, absolutely. So we did that for our show. Well, apparently we were the first like band in our region to ask for that. And so it made news. I had no idea. And so one of the other performers I booked saw the article saying that this was coming up. And of course they were upset because we didn't ask the other performers about this first. I didn't even ask the rest of the band. I just made the decision. It was an executive decision that I was like, I am making this. Well, of course they were upset. I understand, but they were mostly upset because the article that they saw was actually misleading. The article said that it was only for vaccinated people. It didn't mention the option to show a negative COVID test. And so that created a little bit of a stir. I don't care. It's, I'd rather keep people safe than like worry about upsetting someone. This isn't political. This is just like to make sure that no one dies at one of our shows or afterwards. Yeah, that was wild. But, now for this upcoming show on May 14th, since things have calmed down, so many of us are vaccinated and or have also had COVID. The venue said, we're doing this case by case or artist by artist, basis. Do you want any more protocols? Do you want negative COVID test or vaccination cards to be shown, through the door? And I was like, nah, let's just roll with it. I'm ready to move on. I'm just ready.
Well, one thing other to add to that, especially with the amount of shows that I've gone to, it's out of, I think, the 17 or 18 I've gone to already this year, only one place required to still show like a negative COVID test or a vaccination card. But it was the venue's decision. The venue's been doing it pretty much ever since they were able to open back up. And that's their decision. That's their choice. No harm, no foul. In 2021, I had a lot more of those instances where it's, I want to go to a show outside. Pretty much was mostly all the ones I went to outside of the city of Milwaukee where I live. And it was like, okay, now you have to show proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test, which of course, seen as an inconvenience. But, it was the times that we were living in. You just rolled with the punches and you just went with it. But for what you did, especially with that first show, that all of a sudden it's like the first one in the area where a negative test or a vaccination card was required. I mean, still, you have to take a look at it at the times. It made sense to the point where that's what a lot of the music industry was doing because live music had finally come back. And the last thing we wanted to do was lose it again.
Yes. Absolutely. And even we don't pay our bills with this band. I mean, we pay right now. We definitely pay to have this band. But what you said about making sure that we don't lose live music again. I mean, I'm a contributing writer. Sorry, words are hard when I speak sometimes. For a local music publication in West Michigan. And a lot of the people that we write about are full-time musicians. This is how they make a living. This is how they support themselves, how they feed their families. And so even if we don't play a show, fine, whatever, just like sucks because we're not playing, but we're not relying on that for income, but other people are. So even if we can just set, a healthy standard or precedent in the area for these musicians who need to do this to put food on the table, then yeah, I'm going to do that. Also, like, I prefer to keep people safe if I can. I don't understand what's so hard about that, but I don't know. Some people are really up in arms about keeping other people protected.
Honestly, in my opinion, it was just with how politicized everything got from
Yeah.
one side or the other. And I mean, that's also kind of the way that it looks like the state of this country. It's like, you're on one side or the other, and you have to be on one side or the other, and then you're not going to like the other side. You can't sit in the middle. You can't have that compromise. No, screw that. I mean, we were founded on compromise and understanding where other people are coming from and building up those relationships. So it all comes down to the point where it's just, again, you just had to realize, especially with some of the musicians, some of the larger ones, where this is how they make their money. This is how they support their families. They're going around, and they're also having to deal with at those times, especially in 2021, different, statewide mandates, different local mandates, whatever the venue was gonna, whatever rules the venue was going to have, whatever rules the promoter was going to have. So there were so many different aspects a part there where it's like some shows, some bands would be on tour, and you go to a show, I'll use my home city, Milwaukee. You go to play a show here at the Rave Milwaukee, and it's like, whatever you guys want to do, it's up to you. All of a sudden in 2021, you played a show down in Chicago, like the Aragon Ballroom. All of a sudden it's like, if the, mask mandate, boom, we're required to have a mask when you walk in. All of a sudden you're required to show a vaccine card or negative COVID test. Or at one point it was you were required to show a vaccine card, and that was the only way you were getting in. So it's just, you had to deal with so many different, rules and rules and things. And all these bands were trying to do is go out, perform, do what they love. And also, again, that's how they support their families. That's how they support themselves. So having that understanding and having that ability to, see things from the other perspective also aids in the fact of knowing, this is what we had to do for that small period of time to make sure that we did not lose live music once again, because we lost it for almost, a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it sucked.
Yeah, it was terrible. Terrible. Oh, I don't ever want to go back there.
Yep, me either. But thank God, hopefully we're out of that and we're back in now, back to positivity, live music, where people can come together from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, all different, mindsets, come together and enjoy something together. This thing we call live music, this thing we call whatever, band you're listening to, whatever genre, subgenre you're listening, whatever it might be. Just come back and enjoy it once again.
Absolutely. I mean, that's where, like, I don't know, that's why I started getting into music. I mean, when I was very young getting into music, I wasn't going to live shows and performances and concerts, but that's what I would envision every single time I heard my, like cassette tape or CDs. Like, I was 5 when I got my first cassette tape and my first karaoke machine, the shyest kid probably ever. I wouldn't talk to my family, but for some reason, if a babysitter was over, or like more of my family was over, I would like make them all sit on the couch, and I turn on the light on the ceiling light above me. That was my spotlight, right? That's what I envisioned. And I'm singing Achy Breaky Heart and Billy Ray Cyrus on my karaoke machine. And I'm like making them watch me. Like, but at this point, I'd never been to a concert. I'd only seen maybe stuff on TV. And, but that was my way to communicate. I couldn't talk to any of my family. I couldn't say a word, like to my extended family. I was so shy, but yeah, I'm going to make you sit down and watch me sing, even if I don't know the words.
Well, as long as you knew the words Achy Breaky Heart, I think you were going to be doing just fine.
I did know the chorus. The verses were just like a bunch of mumbling.
Bunch of mumbling about country music and whatever else they talk about with having your heart go achy breaky.
Yeah, and 5-year-olds don't understand that. So
no, but I mean, just think about that and the power that music had on you just as a young child, where being shy and you're get a karaoke machine and you feel the confidence enough at that point to break away from that shyness, to have your family and your extended family basically have to sit in the living room and watch you pretty much perform at that point. Because there are many musicians out there still where, performing on stage still has a little bit of like a thing for them, where it's like they're still nervous when they go out there just because of how many people there are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I still get nervous for every show, but it's a good nervous. It's that like fight or flight mode where I'm like, okay, like I use that. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people do, to just like amp me up and really just, I get on that stage and I'm home. It's I don't even know how to really explain the feeling, but it is it's the scariest, but also my most favorite and comfortable place in the world. It doesn't make sense, but it does.
Well, let me give it a shot describing this as well and trying to like give an idea for whoever is listening, all the audience out there. So when it really comes to just, you might be just nervous to go out there, but it feels like that home away from home and like just like the place where you feel most comfortable. I mean, when you're drawn to a place like that, no matter how many people are there, there's just some sort of comfort level that ends up bringing you out there, even if you're nervous to go in there. For myself, I mean, like I love going to concerts, but I also just cannot stop going into mosh pits. I see one open up, I'm like, ooh, must go, must go, must go. And it's like, I can't hold myself back from it. It's just because there's some sort of feeling of just like, yeah, it's chaos in there, but there's some sort of just like fun, happiness, and camaraderie, and just everyone letting out these feelings of potential like aggression they're not able to. And by the time the song is over, the amount of high fives and hugs you get from people is absolutely ridiculous. It's just this feeling of, when you're up on stage as well, it's just this feeling of comfort, this feeling of like, even though you might be nervous to go out there at times, it's just this feeling of like, I'm here, I'm at home. This is where nothing else matters except for the happiness that this brings me and what I am doing at this exact moment. It is probably the most present thing you can do, is to find that place and live in there in the moment.
Oh, that is exactly what that is. I don't know any other time that I feel more present than when I am on the stage. It's like, it's almost an out of body experience. Like my body is just the vessel, right? Somehow I'm connected, but disconnected at the same time. I'm on stage, but I'm also in the crowd. I don't know. And it's the same thing when I'm watching the concert, especially if it's one of my favorite musicians, or bands like a Incubus or someone that I really just want to be in their shoes, like Paramore. And when I'm watching them and I'm just like overwhelmed and joy and like, I feel so connected. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to just be like crying and not because I'm like starstruck. I'm not because I'm like this fan, like crazy fan, but because I feel it so strongly that like, this is where I need to be right this second. And there's nowhere else I want to be.
Understandable. I'll say a couple things. One, don't worry about the crying thing. The day before we shot this, I saw Dayseeker, so I saw a lot of that in the crowd.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Them, Thornhill holding absence in caskets. It was just like everyone was just like getting into it, especially when Dayseeker went on. Just the emotion that was let out from a lot of those people. It was something truly incredible to see.
Wow. Oh, to be a fly on that wall.
Oh, or just to be in the crowd for that, honestly.
Yeah. To be a fly in the crowd, yeah.
But just like to add a little bit more to that too, it's just when you think about, especially being on stage or even like being in the crowd, that's where you feel the most comfortable. That's where you feel the most present, where all that matters is the feelings you're feeling in that moment. All that matters is what is going on right in that moment. You're not thinking about something that happened, earlier in the day. You're not thinking about something that happened in the past, or you're not thinking about how those moments in the past affected you. And like, you're not thinking about the future as well. You're not worrying about, what you're going to be doing tomorrow. You're not worrying about some project that you've got going on for work, or the fact that your boss might be calling you and is just like, we need you to work on this now. You're on call and you're like, I'm in a concert. Damn it. I'm living my life. But it's just this feeling of just utter presence where you are just in that moment and nothing else is entering your mind except for what is going on at that given moment, the emotions that you're feeling at that given moment. There is something there. There is something special about that. And when you find that one thing, it's you want to just have that happen over and over and over again, because it is a thing that helps center you and also make sure that you understand and really realize who you truly are as a person, what truly makes you happy, and why you are the happiest in that moment, because you are living life the way that you want to be living it, and nothing else, no other outside forces, no other, planning for the future or things in the past, like nothing else is impacting you at that moment except for what's going on right then and there.
Yeah. And I think that's hard to explain to people who don't perform and don't get on stage, because I have a lot of friends who are really into yoga. I do yoga, but they're super into meditation. I feel like I don't know how to meditate, but when I'm on stage, that's exactly what I'm doing because I'm just present. That's where I am. I don't need to be anywhere else. Even if I could be singing and playing the saddest song. I mean, I could be in tears, but I still feel so fulfilled. Yeah, I don't know. It's wild, but you can't deny it.
That might be the best word to describe it. Is just you, even whatever emotions are flowing through at that point, whether it's emotions of, pure happiness or ecstatic or just energy filled or, sadness and you're crying. There's a fulfilled feeling of it because, again, you're feeling the emotions that you really are like at your true self at that point right then and there. And you're freely able to let yourself express it. And for like your friends that are very into yoga and like meditating like that, it's kind of like the feeling that they get during that, like in that moment is like the feeling that like someone like you gets on stage. Someone like me gets when, someone like me gets when all of a sudden I'm in the crowd and all of a sudden here comes Rise Against on stage and my mind just like, I don't care what else is going on. Nearly like it's an extra vibe. It's like, I don't care what else is going on. I don't even care. I've gone to those shows like feeling like, like I can't even move and all of a sudden the music goes on and like my body just like, whew, I'm back.
Yes. So let me ask you this. What do you do if you have like a friend that's coming up and maybe they went to the show with you, maybe you ran into them there. Either way, they come up and they are just like super chatty Cathy's and you are so like entrenched in the moment with what's going on stage, but they're just here like blah, blah, blah. This is what happened today. Like, how do you handle that?
So this is usually what goes on where I mostly go to shows by myself for the sole purpose of what I like to do when I go to shows. Of course, I like to jump in the pit. I like to go crazy. I like to just fully live in the moment the way I want to live in the moment. There's not a lot of people, a lot of my friends I know that do like to do that. However, there's so many friends that I end up like, I know their faces. I don't know many of their names, but I see them in the crowd every single time. I know what they look like. I have this connection with them. So it's like every time it's like I get to see my friends there. But there are a couple times where I have taken some friends to shows. Sometimes people like to jump in with me. I gave my buddy free tickets to the Rise Again show here in April because it was on his birthday. So him and his girlfriend came and I couldn't find him throughout the whole entire show. But I'm like, you guys know exactly where I'm going to be. Third song in, all of a sudden I get hit from the side like a freaking truck. And I'm like, who the hell did that? And there's my buddy. I'm just like, yo!
That's perfect because those are the people like, they are coming to the show to do what you're doing. Not just like socialize.
Yeah, I think there was one, this was back in September of 2021 where it was Summerfest here in Milwaukee because they did it late because of the pandemic. And my friend was coming from Green Bay down to Milwaukee because I got her in a lot of the kind of music that I like. And she really took a liking to Falling in Reverse. And they were playing out like, they came out like 3 weeks before and we're like, what? And all of a sudden, they had Spirit Box opening for. I'm like, okay, this is insane. So I told her to come down for the show. And like, she was like ecstatic for it. And then I said, you have to stay the next night because, well, we'll go disc golfing during the day. And then like, you're seeing one of your favorite bands the next night. We're seeing one of mine, even though I really like Falling in Reverse as well because Rise Against was playing the next night. I wasn't going to say no. For Falling in Reverse's set, it was kind of cool because it was like, I mean, of course, with Summerfest, it's, one thing I don't like is you have all the bleachers on the ground, so people are saying you can't really move at all. And if you try,
wild there. Is wild.
If you try and tip up the bleachers, security doesn't really like that because we did that for August Burns Red, and I kind of almost got kicked out for that one because I was just trying to give people room to mosh so people weren't falling over each other on the bleachers. Like I almost tore up my knee 7 times because of that. I'm like, no, I'm helping, but yeah, I understand why. So during the Falling in Reverse set, they had this little area in front that you had to get like passes for, but it was literally like a pit area. I'm like, okay, cool. How do I get in there? Couldn't find a way to couldn't get the passes in there. So my friend and I just stood on the benches. But once Falling in Reverse went on, it was like, because we were talking, we enjoyed Spirit Box set, but all of a sudden, talking, I'm like, I wonder what she's gonna be like during Falling in Reverse's set. Just she was laser focused in on what was going on. So I'm like, I love this shit.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
But then we went to go see Rise Against, and I'm like, someone I work with at my full-time job, I could not get into the pit for anything. I couldn't get a pass, nothing. Minute before the show starts, I hear my name called, and there's the person I work with. She holds up a pass. She's like, do you want it? Me, I can't say no to that. So I go and take it, and I talk to my friend, and she says, if you don't, I'm like, I feel bad because like I don't want to leave you here alone because you don't know anyone else around here. She looked at me dead in the face and said, if you don't go in that pit, then you're not the person I thought you were.
Ooh, good friend.
I just said, see ya. Poosh, I was off.
Oh, that's, I hope that's a friend that you kept around.
Oh, absolutely. She still lives up in Green Bay, so we don't talk or see each other all that much, but it's like I still talk to her pretty much a good amount of the time and still act like a goof. Also because her boyfriend's name is Tim, so I always call him Timmy, and then I say that he has fairy godparents, and I just ask him like, where are your fairy godparents, man? So I started acting like Mr. Crocker on Snapchat. So it's like, I'm trying to figure out how you guys didn't make this happen. There's only one explanation. Fairy godparents!
You live your best life.
Trying to, at least.
That's awesome.
Well, I mean, I would say the same for you as well. Making music, going up on stage, living the life that you want to live. I mean, that's kind of what I look at life. That's what it's all about. That's why I do this stuff. And because this is what I like and looking at you, doing what you want to do is with Lokella. You guys got the brand new album coming out, As We Unravel, on May 13th. I need to make sure I say that like a couple of times because, well, we got to make sure people know about it. So if you're also watching the YouTube video, if you look at the bottom of the screen, it's all right there for you.
Awesome. Yeah, May 13th. I'm excited. This will be our 4th album as a band, but our first LP. So our first EP was just a 4-song, visual EP. We never even printed it. And it was rushed. We recorded it all ourselves. We consider it more of a demo. That's why it's called The Worst Of. But it's out there. And then we did a couple more EPs, a couple singles. We released an AFI cover, but this feels like the pinnacle for us so far. Which this morning. So actually, okay, let me back up. We just got the CDs in the mail yesterday, all printed and ready to go. I wish we had printed vinyl, but we don't have that kind of money. We're all DIY. We don't have a manager. We don't label. We don't have booking agents. We are all DIY. We pay for everything ourselves, and it's expensive to be in a band. Anyway, we got our CDs. I was so excited. I laid them all out from my first band to my second band to now Lokella in the order of the CDs. And I realized that the last 2 bands after the LP was released, either I left or the band broke up. So I was like, oh, okay, I have to break the cycle now because this cannot be where Lokella ends. We're so proud of this record. And we love it so much that I just want to do everything that I can to, showcase it. And I love making music videos. So there'll be lots of those.
Oh, that's fantastic because it all turns out with especially music videos, especially the way they've been going, there have been some where you're able to create this whole entire visual experience, this whole story, this whole lore behind them. All of a sudden, people get even more and get more connected to them. And it could be something as simple as like Lorna Shore all of a sudden just seeing Will Ramos like in the music video for To the Hellfire Pig Squeal. You're just like, huh? What? Or it could just be something, super produced and just like really takes a lot of the lore in there, like a lot of the Ice Nine Kills videos do. Or just something as wacky and crazy and just makes people laugh and just smile and have fun, like what Electric Callboy is doing. It's just like you create that visual experience that's going to add to the experience of the song, but also evoke so many other emotions for people. That's when you get those music videos where you're just like, you post them online, you post bits of them, on social media, bits of them on TikTok, and people are just like, okay, what is this band and where can I watch the full video? And then after they watch the video, it's like, okay, hopefully all the links are in the description of this video so that I can go and find everything I need to know about this band right now.
Yeah, that's the hardest part for me is because I'm pretty much the person who runs all of our socials, which is a full-time job in itself. We don't do Twitter because I cannot do Twitter. It's too much noise. I recently found out that I've had ADHD all my life. I think a lot of people are finding this out right now. But it makes so much sense. So Twitter is just very overwhelming to me. Now, when it comes to TikTok and Instagram, I really have a hard time. Like, what are the right hashtags to use? What are the right descriptors to use? Are you like linking it properly? What's the right amount of time to man? And it changes so often. I feel like I just wish someone could do this for me. Someone who knows what they're doing.
Or I feel the same way at times. It's just like, okay, how is this gonna work? I've posted. I feel like I got more posts on Instagram than I do followers at this point. It's just like, well, I post like 3-4 times a day, so.
Is that too much? Like at some point, I feel like I'm getting shadow banned. Like if I post something too sexual on TikTok, they're like, no, that's not appropriate. They might get like 50 views, but then I post like a video of like my boxers laying in their bed, boxer dogs. And like, I don't know, 5,000 views in like a day. I'm like, what? What is going on?
Again, it all really takes a look at it, especially from the social media perspective. And you guys being a DIY band, along with, me doing everything I do for the podcast myself, it's trying to find exactly what's going to hit, what those platforms are not necessarily geared around, but what are the people on those platforms looking for? What are they interested in? Yes. And how can you take what you're making and what you have done and turn it into something that is still exactly what you want it to be, but also be focused towards that audience, focused towards the people that are looking at that, and gear it towards them so that they're drawn into it.
Right. And that's a lot to think about.
Yeah, which is, I'm still trying to figure out, especially with like TikTok and stuff, because like there's some where it's just, I'm putting out some videos from the podcast. It's like, okay, I got 500 here, I got 1,000 here. All of a sudden, there's one with over 20,000 on it. It's a story about how this one band, how they wrote like what I thought was the best song in their album, because the lead singer was out drinking one night, woke up from a drunken stupor, was like, "Oh God, kill me," and just was like writing really angry about like trying to not be hungover. And boom, best song of the album came out of that.
Okay, so this is what he did on TikTok?
This is what I did for like the podcast I did for them. Like I put a supercut full of it.
Okay, you're giving me ideas. Now let's see if I remember them. That's the tricky part.
Well, once this podcast comes out, it's like, okay, what part am I looking for? Let's look through the little chapters on YouTube. All right, it's right there.
True. Okay, great. Yes, good point. Thank you for that.
I'll take care of that, because honestly, it's just I even from my perspective, well, and a lot of the bands I know that are doing things independently, because more and more bands are doing things independently. It's an interesting like way to look at it too, because there are bands that you get signed to record deals, you get signed to labels and stuff, and now you have that money behind you. But then there's like sometimes there's limited freedoms around that based off of what the label wants, what your manager wants, what the perception they want around there to get you booked on certain, all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to that, independent side of things, you can really work within that to completely build up your own style, your own identity. And so that, if you are looking for a record deal, by the time you get signed, all of a sudden what you created, that identity that you carved out for yourself, is looked at as one of the most important assets for a band that really draws people into it, especially from a social media perspective. Best example I have that right now, or two best examples, From Ashes to New and the band Avoid. My God, look at their socials. They're just ridiculous with it, but it's fantastic in two completely different ways about how they go about it.
Oh, I'm excited to check this out now. And I'm glad that this will be posted later, because I definitely will remember that. I don't need to remember it. It's going to be on the internet.
And if for some reason it's like, you need a little bit before and maybe the episode comes out, it's like, okay, you need to remember this. Like, what bands are you talking about? Or like, when you look at, just send me a message. Just be like, alrighty, let's just go on my computers. Okay, get it out there. Call
That's exactly how I internet very angrily sometimes.
It's like you're interneting like Jim Carrey and Bruce Almighty trying to answer all those emails, just and then one hand going crazy, grab a cup of coffee.
Oh yeah, I need like 6 arms at this point. Two to pet dogs, 1 to drink my coffee, and then like 4 to write on the internet.
And then 2 extra arms just to act like wacky wavy inflatable arm filling tube man.
Just like this.
I had to pull that out at least once, especially from the beginning of the conversation we had before.
You got me too.
Yeah, woo. But now I do want to jump into the album a little bit more and really dive deep into some things around there, because of course it is the brand new album and I want to get people to know a little bit more about it and really dive a little bit deeper into it, so that, all of a sudden when it comes out, and then when the episode comes out, people are just like, okay, I need to listen to this. So let me go and find this online and just start listening to it. So when it comes to As We Unravel, what was the real emotion behind this album? When you were writing this, what was the inspiration behind it, especially with the stories you were trying to tell and portray through these songs? Because I did go in every single song and like, okay, what can I pull out of this? What can I what can I pick out of this to really get an understanding for the song, for the sound, for the style. So I also kind of want to see if my interpretation matches up with what was the original idea or what was the full-on idea and inspiration for this.
Okay. Well, I should start by saying that when we started writing these songs, I mean, we started, I think, with a batch of maybe four songs or so. And we started writing these in 2019, right after we released our last EP, Sensory Overload. At the time, so we released Sensory Overload. We went on tour immediately, and I learned some very hard lessons on tour. And number one, not to play the hometown release show as the first show of the tour, because I am, when we do our hometown shows, I'm pretty much running it. I mean, besides dealing with what the venue is dealing with, I'm booking the bands. I'm trying to make sure that everything is running on time. I'm also making sure our set is good. I mean, the guys do so much for our set, so it's not just me here, but I'm the go-to person. If other bands or performers have questions, they come to me. If the venue has questions, they come to me. If the show attendees have questions, they come to me. And I have, we've made so many friends here. So I'm talking all before our set. I'm talking all after our set. I'm going really hard during our set. So the next show we played after our release show in 2019, I was going hard again on the other side of the state, where I also have a lot of connections because I grew up there. And so 2 shows in a row with no sleep. I mean, by the time we got to Nashville on tour, my voice was gone. And I was so worried about it. And then there was a show in Columbus we had booked that we got a call from, or not even a call. We got a Facebook message from the owner of the club in Columbus. And it was like the day before the show. And they're like, yeah, sorry, we double booked. So no show for you guys. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Sorry, can I swear?
Fuck yeah.
Okay. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And I was like, okay, I have no voice. We have no Columbus show. We still have, we had Atlanta, North Carolina, and Chicago at least to play. But at this point, I was just so stressed and so bummed that I was very worried about my voice, especially. And so we canceled a couple of shows. We went back home and we gave it a couple days rest. We did play the Chicago show. Luckily, my voice was great by that time. But all of that really just, we had so much excitement, so much anticipation with this tour and this release, that when it all kind of crumbled, we just felt really defeated, extremely defeated. And I got to the point where I was like, am I cut out for this? Like, this is what I've dreamt about since I was 5 with that karaoke machine, mumbling achy breaky heart to my family. But is this it? Like, is this how it ends? And so I spiraled. If I unraveled, really. And that was terrifying. But it also forced me to kind of shift gears. And at the time, that summer that came, just a couple of weeks after that tour ended, I was really depressed and unnerved. I had no idea what I was going to do. I mean, I love my jobs, as I've been self-employed for almost 10 years now and doing hair and makeup, but that was great. I love that stuff. It pays the bills, but it wasn't the dream that I had always had. It wasn't what I was like insanely passionate about. So when I thought that the dream was dead, but I still had like I must have had like a smidgen of hope in me, because that summer when I had too much time off, I had too much free time. And in my free time, I like to just like browse Zillow and I just like to dream about houses for some reason. And so Evan plays bass in the band. Also, I am married to him. He always wanted to build a recording studio. And so I started like looking at houses for fun. We had one. We we were owned for about 6 years. But I found this house that I'm in right now, and it was like out of a price range, and I walked through it just like stars in my eyes, not seriously looking for a house, but my sister-in-law had just become a realtor and was like happy to just like show me houses for fun. But I found this house and I was like, oh shit. I walked in this house. I was like, this feels like I need to be here. This feels like a retreat. We're out in the middle of the woods. We're out in the middle of nowhere. All my life, I thought I was a city girl. I grew up in Metro Detroit, and I was like, I'm a city girl. Country scares the heck out of me. I don't know how people live in the country. I came out to this house that's in the country in the middle of the woods, and I was like, my soul is like, you need to be here. And I was like, oh, we need to try to make it happen. And Evan came and looked at the house. He was like, yeah, no, I really wanted to like this house. This is not going to work. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, pack it up. Let's go home. We're not going to do it. Well, the price dropped by 20 grand. And I was like looking at the real estate market, and I'm not a realtor, but I was like, if I think we can sell our house at what I think we can sell it, then we could maybe make this happen. We could build a studio. We could have our privacy. I could actually have a pool. And we did. After a couple months, we made it work. Well, we started building the studio a couple months before the pandemic hit. And we were, we had to deconstruct a beautiful finished basement to reconstruct it for the studio, because Evan's design was intricate. It's not just like just a little home studio. Like, it's a full thing. We record drums and everything here, and he does it well. And so we were in the middle of it, and then the pandemic hit. I was forced to stop working, of course, for months. And at the time I was so burned out. I was like, do I even want to do hair and makeup anymore? I'm losing my mind. I'm quitting all my jobs, even though I'm self-employed. I'm telling everyone I'm just not doing it anymore. I'm making a big deal of it because I'm dramatic, I guess. Who knew? And then I'm like, well, shit, now we have this house and this studio. We have all these things that we really like. This is big money. And I'm not making any money now. I'm literally losing my mind. Now we're both self-employed. We go to do our taxes, and I am like, we've always owed the IRS money. Now we owe them lots of money, and now I'm not making any money. I'm like, oh my God, I'm complete breakdown. And Evan is like, you are self-sabotaging. This is what you do when you get stressed. And I was like, what? Oh, fuck, you're right. This is what I do. I am self-sabotaging. I quit things when I get stressed, and I just blow up. And so all of 2020 was just some serious revelations for me. And I'm dealing with, now I have all this extra time to think, which is so frightening because I am so go, 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 that when I'm suddenly forced to stop and I get in my head, I lose it and I unravel. And I'm, now I'm digging into my past about, the history of mental health in my family, possibly addiction issues, all sorts of trauma that I've never dealt with. And all this other stuff too. We live in the Bible Belt of Michigan. I'm an atheist. Evan is an atheist. I don't really know how Chris and Josh feel about religion. I think that I do, but I'm not trying to force it out of them. But it's just such a weird adjustment. And then we have all of the, the social unrest that happened that really started unraveling even more in 2020 with, all George Floyd. And man, I am shocked I survived 2020. To be honest with you. And so that's what the record is about. Yeah, just it was tough, man, but we're here.
So that is quite the story. But that's one thing I love about doing these podcasts, is just because getting to go deep into music and understanding where all this inspiration came from. And I mean, taking a look at what you had all said, taking a look at everything that happened in 2020, and also taking a look at, things that happened around your life and how they affected you, and how when things were getting you stressed, all of a sudden self-sabotaging, and, you look at you potentially owing the IRS a lot of money. Stupid IRS.
Yeah.
Give me my money. I earned it, dang it.
Taxation is theft.
Yes, thank you. So even like going further into that, because when I was listening to the album and really trying to like figure out and pick apart a lot of these songs and like understand, where the story was coming from, where the meaning was coming from, where the emotion was coming from, to really understand the sound and how it was driven. That was like the main theme I picked up on, though, was just all these different outside forces coming in potentially from other people. Might be just, people you work with, relationships, maybe family relationships, friendships, relationships with significant others from past, present, whatever it might be. Just all these different attributes and all these different influences that are not yourself, just affecting you in every single way to try and just completely change up what you are, who you are, until you go towards the end of the album where it's, starting to kind of like fight back against those, to the last song, which is more or less kind of the coming out of this and understanding that, what is truly inside of you and what is the passion within you. Got to let that fly and really got to understand that, because there are going to be so many times, and it's continuous, where influences are going to come in and try and derail you. And it might be something, let's just say, out of your control. Say you get, sick or something for like a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden just you feel burnt out and you just can't concentrate. And it's just a struggle to try and go through things. And you feel like you're going through the motions on the thing you like the most. And you start to question that, just because, honestly, just because, you got sick and you're just not up to 100% yourself, or just whatever else is going on in life, just all the people that are around there, all the other outside of the social media, the big media in itself, there's whatever it might be, so many different things coming in at you. And it's really, this album kind of takes a look at how many of those different things have come in my opinion, and how they've tried to affect you, but the importance of breaking through that to the point where you come out the other side stronger than before, but also understanding that these things are going to continue to come at you. But when you are understanding who you truly are inside you and who you truly are at your core, then that's when you can break through these things. That's when you can show those passions. And that's when you can really take life, relationships, anything within there to a whole nother extent, of positivity and happiness.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I love that you brought up the last song, because that song, Death Sings, that was so summer of 2020. Obviously we have lots of death that we're talking about constantly in the news, whether it's from the pandemic or from police brutality or whatever it may be. I mean, that was like, it was doomsday in the news through and through. And now what we've got, the war in Ukraine and everything like that. God, it just like doesn't end, right? And that's life. But Death Sings was interesting because before, at the end of 2019, before we moved houses, our last house backed up to a cemetery. We lived on a cemetery for 6 years. The most beautiful, I miss the cemetery every single day. We walked it all the time. It was gorgeous. It was quiet. It was peaceful. I had some amazing times, and we filmed a lot of videos there. Like that cemetery is my home, right? Well, the very last, I know it's weird, but that's one of the most peaceful places for me. The very last night we took a stroll, and to be honest, like right before we left, I got a little high, and it was really windy out that night. And so we're walking, and I keep thinking I'm hearing something, but I don't know if it's the wind. I don't know if it's just like my brain on drugs. I'm just kidding. But I was like, what am I hearing? And we get closer, and I'm like, that's an owl. And this is a cemetery in the city. And so an owl, I've never seen an owl in person. I've never heard an owl in person. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. And so as we get closer, sure enough, it's a great horned owl sitting atop of this tree, and it's calling, and I'm like calling back to it, and it like turns its head and looks at me, and I'm like, oh shit, that is like, I'm like threatened. This is a huge bird, but this is awesome. And so I won't forget that. But then fast forward into summer of 2020, my first summer living in the woods. Now our windows are open. Death is everywhere. I'm trying to just keep my head above water at this point. And I keep hearing this owl outside of our house. And it's not a great horn. It's a barred owl. I learned that later. But I just thought it was so interesting. Some nights I try to sleep and it sounded like it was like behind my head. And I thought it was awesome. I am a huge nature lover and especially a bird lover. And so I really dug into this because what I found out with ADHD is that I hyper focus and I get so interested in a topic that I just research it until I'm blue in the face. So I wanted to know what the spiritual meaning of owls were, even though I'm not that spiritual, but I wanted to see what other people's interpretation of it was. And in many Native American cultures, it is like the symbol of death or a symbol of resurgence. It can vary, but so I'm digging into this and I'm just writing in my journal. I've journaled forever, poetry, whatever. And I'm like, but is the owl like the symbol of death? Like, is it the angel of death? Like, what is this? Like, let's break this down. And, I'm like just playing around on my piano one day, just kind of like, I don't know, getting my thoughts out and trying to like put some chords together. And everyone's like, you need to bring that to the guys. We need to like do something with this. And I was like, no, this is just for fun. I'm just like playing around. He's like, no, like for real, like you need to bring this to practice. And I did. And what came out of it? It's so weird because the song really is about death. And at the time we lost 4 members of our family, a grandfather and 3 uncles, and all of them, well, most of them really sudden. One uncle was very sick for a long time, but all of it was just it was surrounding this. And so I could not stop thinking about death. And I wrote this song, but Death Sings, the way that it ends, it feels uplifting. Weirdly, it feels like empowering almost. I don't know what it is. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to understand how the song like flourished the way that it did, but I can't ignore it. And I don't know if I even want to question it that much. Man, it's one of my favorite songs on the entire album.
Well, when I took a look at Death Sings, well, first up, before I start that, I mean, when you started talking about, a graveyard in the back, like really like up against the backyard house, you spent a lot of time in there and the beauty behind it. My mind literally went to the chorus from Eternally Yours by Motionless in White, where it's talking about a garden made of stone. I'm just like, I'm totally seeing this now and totally getting the connection to it. So, I mean, if you haven't yet, or if you haven't really like taken a deep dive into it, dive deep in the song Eternally Yours by Motionless in White. It is,
okay,
in my mind, it is one of the 10 best songs I've ever heard in my entire life.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm convinced now.
And you can either listen, and here's another thing, you can either listen to the original version, which is just absolutely incredible, or during the pandemic, they did this reimagining of like a theatrical cinematic version, and it just ups the beauty of the song by like 2 to the power of 1,000.
Okay, so I'm gonna listen to the older version and then I'm gonna watch that. That's awesome.
Yeah, listen to the original version. You can watch the music video, but it doesn't have the long outro to it in the music video, and the long outro adds more to the beauty of the song, in my opinion. So I'd say watch the video, listen to the full song as it is on the album from them, and then listen to the cinematic version. It's just like, I got a feeling your mind's just gonna be like,
oh, I have chills just thinking about it right now. Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking about it now again because I saw them on the Trinity of Terror tour twice, and always they end with that song, and their lead singer Chris Motionless will throw roses into the crowd during that song.
I love that. I love that so much.
It's kind of funny too because before I go back into Death Sings, it was like the second show I saw him at, the Trinity of Terror, was up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and before the show had started, like I'm in the crowd and I'm just talking to a bunch of random people, and there was this guy that brought his maybe like 11 or 12-year-old daughter there, and apparently like she was all into Ice Nine Kills, which, not gonna lie, I'm stoked on that because so am I. And he came for Motionless in White, which I'm also stoked about as well. So we're talking about the show and everything. Show gets going. They go further up. I go to the pit. At the end of the show, I was trying to find a couple people I knew at the show, kind of like say hi and then bye to him, that kind of thing. And as I was walking out, I ran into him, and basically he's like, yeah, I think we kind of flipped on this one. He's like, I loved Ice Nine Kills. And all of a sudden he's like, most of the way went, and she just went insane. Like she could not get enough of it. And I'm like, and I saw the rose in her hand. I'm like, oh, like you got the rose? He's like, yeah, I held her up, and Chris literally, when he was throwing out, he didn't throw that one. He handed it to her. He's like, I'm making sure this little girl gets one.
Oh, that is really special. Oh, I love that.
But it's all about that last song, Eternally, or is it just like sticks in my mind? Because of course I love this song, but just when you start talking about the cemetery, garden made of stone, I'm just like mine just like going crazy. But like listening to Death Sings, because when I was going through it, I did get the feel of like this like death and rebirth in a way, where we just went through an entire album that dealt with themes of like, losing yourself, seeing negativity around your life, and struggling to find your true self due to all these different influences that are coming around and affecting you in potentially a very negative way. But what the song does is offers like death of the complacency that you allowed and dealt with through all of this, and a rebirth of the confidence going forward, as not to get lost in the influences out there meant to divide us or make us miserable. And one was the song that stuck out to me as like an influence that I thought you might have come from this song, just the way it was constructed and the way that it was presented, would have been the song 25 by The Pretty Reckless, where it's just like the slow build to it and this powerful boom closer to the end, and this feeling of just understanding and rebirth into something of like kind of letting yourself actually be born to the point where, we grow up and we experience many different things and so many other people have influence in our lives. But when we finally understand who we truly are at our core, it's like, now this is the birth of that moment. So it's like the death of all the artificial, superficial things, all the bad influences that really negatively impacted us. And now that rebirth at the end is here. So now you are fully in that moment where you understand who you are truly as a person. And now it is out there, and the confidence that you have behind that is running at an all-time high, and you're just ready to roll with it throughout the rest of your life to make the most out of the rest of your life that you possibly can.
Yeah, I really love that. I'm not even sure I've heard that song yet. I might have, but I'm gonna have to check that out again, because that, yeah, wow, I don't even have any words for that. That's true. All of it.
I just went with the song and I just took it in like this whole, like, you had this direction where I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
now it's like you're driving at 60 with it, and all of a sudden it's like I get behind the wheel of a car and I'm just like, we're gonna take this all Fast and Furious style. I'm going as fast as possible. I'm hitting the NOS button. We're flying on this. We're just gonna keep making this even more, fast, and sometimes even more furious.
Oh, those are good movies, though. I mean, come on, we can't deny it. Oh, good in like ways.
The amount of times I watched those movies when I was in college was ridiculous. It was like doing homework already. Fast and Furious movie on. Let's go.
Oh yeah. I mean, the amount of car wrecks that happened in my town after like the first movie came out, it was like a little frightening. But like coming right out of the theater, I mean, we had this little promenade that was like right next to the theater, and like already these kids, I'm like, oh, I am going home. I'm going to bed.
Just gonna get out of this so that my car doesn't end up like one of the 500 cars that got wrecked during the filming of the movie.
Oh yeah. Although it was probably pretty fun to shoot.
Yeah, and they still got like one more to go, I think they're trying to do.
Really? Okay. Good deal. I'm in.
They want to hit 10. I pretty much was ready. Like after 7, I'm pretty much like they should stop it here. Like the way that 7 ended, I'm like, you got to stop it here. I saw 8 and I'm just like, this just doesn't feel fully right. And then 9 came out and I still have not seen it yet.
You know what? I guess I'm not as big of a fan as I thought, because I had no idea there were 9. I thought we were done at 4. Where have I been for the last 5? I don't know.
Honestly, out of all of them, my 5, 6, and 7 are the best ones.
Oh, okay. Well, I have some catching up to do.
Well, that's when The Rock comes in, and then all of a sudden get everyone else involved, and then the last one they did with Paul Walker, like that's the one they should have ended it on.
100%. It's not the same without Paul Walker.
No, there's that dynamic, because of course, Vin Diesel's character, Dominic, like that's going to be the primary character, the primary driver around everything. But because you also had Paul Walker's character in there as well, you had that other driving point behind so many different things where you could have gone so many different avenues. Now, say, the tragedy did not happen with Paul Walker and he was still around. So now 7 ends up ending the way it does, but without, and without the the ending that it has now. But so Paul Walker's around, and the 8th comes around, and they do everything they do with the 8th. That adds so much more lore to it, because now it's like you got the split between Vin Diesel's character, Paul Walker's character, and how does that play into everything again? Of course, it's kind of like a tried and true trope once again, but it adds more of this idea behind what is actually going on, and also puts them more at the forefront. Where when in the 7th and the 8th one, you had a bunch of like secondary characters at the forefront, and it just kind of did not hit with the same emotional impact.
No, it's like diluting the storyline. It feels like that's like just grasping for straws.
Hey, but it made over $1 billion.
Okay, so well, their grasping worked.
Grasping for the straws of billions.
Yeah, they're grasping for stacks of cash. They did it. They worked. Whatever.
I'm just gonna take the stack of $100,000 over here, 100 million from this. What is this? A single? Who uses this?
Joke's on them. It's Monopoly money. Good luck spending that anywhere.
Hey, well, I always have a Monopoly get out of jail free card in my wallet, just because if something happens and I pull that out, the worst thing that can happen is what was already going to happen if I didn't pull that out. But if I get someone to laugh and just like take it as a joke, like, oh my, like, I can't believe someone actually did this, start to lighten up the mood, lighten up the situation. Things can go a lot better that way.
Do you have your wallet nearby? I'm going to need to see proof.
I don't have it nearby right now. It's in a completely different room.
You like quick, like draft up this like little card and just show it. You're like, yeah, see, Monopoly, get out of jail for free.
But I got the chance one in there just because, I'm taking a chance if I ever have to pull that thing out.
Right. And just like we said earlier, everything's a risk. I think that's a great risk to take.
Absolutely. And then also, speaking of risk as well, opening up around these different topics like you did in this album. I mean, that's a risk in itself, because when you're opening up about something that takes that such a personal quality to it, that has such this deep rooted personal story behind it, it is sometimes, a risk to put that out there, because you never know how it's going to be perceived. You never know what's going to come out of it, what's going to come out from other people's reactions, or what you're going to recognize from yourself when you write this, because it's a lot of self-reflection. So it is a risk to put that out there. But when you do put something like that out there, what happens is, especially from my perspective with me, going as deep into some of these songs I did to really understand the flow, the sound, and how the meaning all works in together, I can see where these songs are coming from. I can understand where the core emotion behind them are. And then I can connect with them in my own way, because I can connect to that core emotion at the base of the song, and how the instrumentals flow, how the lyrics are put together, how the vocal pattern is done, how the pitch, tempo, everything around there is put out there. So we can put our own selves into the situation and understand more fully, in a sense, what you want to talk about, what you went through, and how it can positively impact our lives at the exact same point.
That is vital, and exactly why I really fell in love with music, as it really is like as a preteen, when I could really start to understand the concepts of what things people were writing about. I remember sitting down, I didn't have a lot of friends as a kid. Like I said earlier, I was really shy. So I would spend a lot of time in my room listening to music constantly, making art. And one of the biggest things I did, I've kept a journal since I was 9. Well, not a journal, mini journal since I was 9. And I would find lyrics in songs that I really related to, and I would copy these lyrics down in my journal. And it just really helped me to, I think, like kind of navigate my own feelings when I didn't have the words to convey what I was feeling or express it. And especially when it came to relationships later down the line, when I was a teenager and like earlier in my 20s, when there was something I really wanted to say to someone that was very important, and I was so vulnerable, but I really didn't know how to say it, I would instead like send them a song or write them a letter, and that also contained a copy of the letter, or a copy of the lyrics that really helped me to communicate my feelings. Not everyone ever always got that. But actually there was one guy I dated when I was a teenager, and he loved music, but didn't know anything about music. He was a soccer player. That was his shtick. And so one day he said to me, man, I understand now. I understand that you communicate through music. And I was like, you get this. You're not even a musician. Like, you don't know anything about music. And yes, that's exactly it. So if I can do that for other people, that's at the end of the day, that's all that matters. If I can help bridge a gap or be a voice for someone else in a certain way, then that is like my job is done. I mean, otherwise to create, like, I like to see, create pretty and weird, like looking things, I guess. But mostly the communication. I had such a hard time communicating as a kid that, and even now, music is the way to go for me. And I know I'm not the only one in that. So I think it's really important.
Oh, I'm going to tell you this. You're definitely not the only one in that, because many musicians, like, they write music and they write these songs to express their emotions, express what they're truly feeling. Using another band from, around where you guys are in Western Michigan, the band Hollow Front, because I recently...
Yes, we know them very well.
Yeah, I recently ended up having a podcast interview with Tyler, their frontman, and we were talking about their brand new album coming out at the end of May. And he wrote a song called Dear Sons, and it was all about him writing a letter to his kids about, how he's on the road all the time, and how he's not always gonna be there for, every single basketball game, everything, like, stuff that kids go through because of what he does for his job. But to know that, he's doing this and he's putting all the time and effort so that they can have a better life than he did, that they can have the things that he didn't, and they can have, and they know, and just also to know that their father truly loves them. And the coolest thing about it was I got to take it in my own way, and I got to take it as a look from the perspective of, a son basically looking at that, because I basically put, Tyler's voice. I imagined my dad being like saying that, because my dad wasn't always around for everything that we did, not going to every single basketball game. I never actually saw my dad pretty much during the week, just because I went to school during the day. He worked second shift, and then on Saturdays he worked a second job. But again, it was the understanding of the fact that he was doing this all because, he loved us, and he wanted to make sure that he provided the most amount for his family that he possibly could, even if it meant missing things. But the fact of the matter is, like, I understood that and just respect him even more for it. Understanding the way that Tyler put that out there in music. I mean, just the relation, like, your sons are going to easily listen to this. They're going to get that feeling, and they're going to know exactly how I feel about my dad in this. Coming to where with your music as well, it adds to it. So there's so many other things that, people express, and this is how they express their emotions, and also connect to their own selves. And like that boyfriend you had when you were a teenager, that soccer player boyfriend who he liked music but didn't really understand it. So I'm kind of thinking about this, because that was basically me in high school. So that's kind of like freaking me out a little bit, like, ah. But now it's like I use music, even though I don't make it, I use music to like sometimes, understand myself, because music gives a tangible explanation to some of those things that are so hard to describe, to those explainable emotions where you can't really understand them unless you felt them. But music gives that feeling to people. So like I use music to like help me through one of the worst periods of my entire life, to understand what drove me down so far, why I was miserable, why my relationships at that time completely failed, and why I just didn't want to be around here anymore. Like, music helped me to get past that, but then also to realize why all of that kind of took place and the effect that it ended up having on me and where I am today, where I'm doing well in so many different aspects, but there's some aspects, I still struggle with, and music helps me realize some of these things. Like, music helped me realize, I have some kind of commitment issues based off of what I went through, and and I want to fix those. I'm not necessarily sure how to yet, but of course, music had the most important thing in helping me realize where some of these issues came from and where some of these issues lie, and that there is an issue in there. So
Yes.
it's that realization moment, that understanding moment, and to be able to like explain to people, what was it like going through something like this, or what were you feeling when you went through something like this? From your perspective as a musician, this is what I feel. Listen to this song, you're gonna feel that emotion through the instrumentals, when listening to lyrics, the poetry that's behind them, how the vocals are put out there. And from my perspective, it's like I can take these songs, relate them to myself, and then also if someone else asks me, it's like I have a hard time describing it. It's like, all right, well, when you were at your absolute lowest, what did it feel like to try and go through? What was the emotion like? And I'm like, boom, here's a song called Above My Head by Polaris. Listen to it. You get the whole story right then and there. You get the whole emotion right then and there. It's the craziest thing in the world, but that is the beauty behind music. And that is why people like yourself, all the musicians around the world, are so important to have in this, because it helps so many people understand so many more things about themselves and realize just the power that they have really within themselves.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely. And I mean, how much, they talk about music therapy. I don't really know what all that entails. I've never looked into it, but music is my therapy. Writing is my therapy. I know that's not what that really actually means. If you're studying in college, I really have no idea, but how much therapy, like self-soothing, do we actually do just with music? And music exists everywhere. We don't even think about it. Like, what would it be like if we were in an elevator without music? What would it be like if we were sitting on hold without music? What would it be like if we were watching a movie without music? Like, without music, everything would be weird.
Without music, life would not be a thing. Because there's one of my favorite quotes of all time: art decorates space, but music decorates time. Think about it. It's like especially from this album, you wrote these songs that really affect, about topics and things and moments that affected you at a certain time. It's decorating that time with the emotion behind it, with the sound behind it, with a tangible explanation behind it. We as listeners all around us. I mean, even yourself, myself, anybody listening to this, you listen to music, you listen to certain songs, and it's like a time warp back to a certain period of time in life where you first heard that song, or when you heard that song when it was the most important point to you, when it impacted your life at the greatest. And it just really helps you to connect with your own self at that point. That's such a beautiful thing behind it. It's such a therapeutic thing behind there. And yes, when it comes to music therapy, there's a lot more of a grander thing around there. But the main gist of it is using music to help you understand more about yourself, to help you realize things about yourself that you might not have realized, to help you heal from, troubles and traumas, because it gives you the motivation, it gives you the understanding, and also provides that feeling that you need to understand before going forward through that healing process.
Yes, absolutely. We're both we're so excited about this. We're just like hitting our desks and our microphones. It looks like a storm is coming through. We're like,
yeah, or there's there's a show going on below us basically, and the bass is going crazy. It's
yeah, those are actually just my dogs playing downstairs. They're just wrestling. It's fine.
Or it's not, or not even that. It's nah. Evan's in the studio and they're just, Evan and Josh in the studio, they're tracking drums right now.
Actually, if they were, you would definitely hear it, because it would come straight up through this floor. It's literally our drum, it's our live room. It's where we practice and where we recorded drums and vocals. It's 2 floors below me right now.
Well, shoot. Now I guess I'll put it this way. Maybe next time we do this, maybe it might have to be a point where all of a sudden towards the end of it, all of a sudden I'm going to start hearing those drums. It's like, okay, now we're going to extend this by an extra half hour, because all of a sudden, okay, take the camera. We're going down there. We're going to take this podcast rogue.
Absolutely. Actually we had rehearsal just, we probably wrapped up about an hour and a half, not even an hour, maybe, before we started this tonight. And I was trying to get the guys to stick around, but they were they're exhausted. They had been here long enough. I was like, all right, it's fine. But next time, join me.
That's understandable. I had other podcasting that I had to do around that time as well, and other recordings. So I'm just like, okay, got to get this done. Yeah. So unfortunately, the time frame didn't work out to bring the guys on here. But next time, I'm pretty sure the guys are going to want to be on here, because we're going to go, we get deep. we get silly, we get wacky, and we just go all over the place with these podcasts. But that's what makes them so much fun and so special.
Yes. And you get all of us together and it does get silly. And actually it might be hard to get a lot of information out because it's a lot of silliness. Actually, if on our YouTube, we have, this was Chris's idea a couple years ago. Have you seen those like drunk history, Comedy Central things? Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris was like, we should do that for the band. I was like, all right, we're going to do it. So we filmed these, I think 2019. And he went for it. Like he went balls to the wall. He was like, I am getting drunk and we're going to talk about the history of the band. So it was him and I, and then Josh and Chris on a different video. We had to split them up because there was so much. I had to edit them. It was very hard to edit. I was like, are you sure we should release these? This is a mess. We did. They're on YouTube. You guys can find them. Drunk History on Lokella, the band Lokella on YouTube. You can find them. Good luck. They're funny to us. Might be funny to you. Maybe they're terrible. I don't know.
I mean, you're giving me ideas to put on the podcast channel. It's going to be like Drunk History, the Chord Progression podcast. And it'll probably be like 5 episodes long because if I get drunk, I'm just going to be like, okay, we're going to go to this. And then I'm just going to like start describing everything that happened at that moment. And then having to go to like reenact these things and try and like speak in like what I said. It's going to be like, maybe I should start like recording stuff and like talking to people and shit. And like sitting down like this while saying it's like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And all of a sudden, the worst part about it is going to be trying to go back to like the place I lived previously. It's like, okay, I got to get this set up because the place I used to live and where I shot my podcast from, I did it in my bedroom at that point, and wasn't a very big room. And I didn't have a closet. So I had a long, like a bar that, you put in your closet to hang your clothes on. It was literally above my desk. So it was like, I had a bunch of like my camera, I was like, my camera's right here. The clothes would be like 6 inches above it.
You just move your camera up a little bit and you're like, people are like, where are you?
It's like, where are we? You are literally looking at all my sweatshirts and like band t-shirts that are hung up right now. Congratulations.
You're like, I do my podcast at a dry cleaners. It's fine. Totally fine. Don't worry about it.
That's going to be in Drunk History. Be like, this podcast is going to, I don't know what I was going to be thinking. I was like, okay, I went from literally doing a podcast in like my parents' basement after like right when I started this because I was right out of college to a bedroom where my closet was basically above me, literally. So I was like working at dry cleaners to now where I'm doing these, I moved up in the world. I'm in my living room.
Moving up. Well, congratulations. You're doing great.
Maybe the next time next time I move or something, I'll have to find a place where I can get my own little like studio and whatnot. Problem is I'm gonna have to like have an actual place where like I live there because otherwise it's gonna be like, okay, go to work, go to gym. I'm gonna be in the studio like working all this stuff. All of a sudden it's gonna be like 1 a.m. It's like shit. I still gotta drive home.
Oh yeah. You gotta be careful there. You gotta draw some boundaries.
Yeah, we'll see about that. When it comes to doing this stuff, I have too much fun with this, so it's like that's gonna be hard.
Yeah. Oh man. I understand that, but like it is important. Otherwise you'll get burned out.
Yeah. Well, we don't need that from any of us. So we need that positivity train rolling. We need the energy train rolling. We need to keep rolling. And as this album has put together, take all those negative influences and find out what they're impacting you. Find a way to remove them to the point where you can have that like moment of death for yourself that on the inside cares about all those things and puts so much stock in them that it suffocates your inner self to let your inner self finally come to life and shine and really be the thing and the beacon of hope that drives you through the rest of your entire life.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's perfect. Thank you for saying that.
You're very welcome. So Jennifer, as we bring this incredible, crazy, wacky, fun, deep, hysterical podcast to a close. Yes. One thing I like to do at the end is always give my guest, which in this case is yourself, a chance to say whatever you want to say, plug whatever you want to plug, promote whatever you want to promote at the end of the podcast. So Jennifer, floor is yours.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure.
Too much pressure.
Okay, well, I guess I should say that since the album will be out in just a couple weeks from where we're recording this, whenever this comes out, Album will be out May 13th everywhere on the internet. You can stream it. You can download it. Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, Tidal, probably. I don't know. All the things. Keep an eye out on YouTube for us, because as of right now, every song that we have released has a music video, and they're all on YouTube. Whether or not they're good, it's hard to say. I've done some editing for some of them. I'm a noob, but some are really, really, really great. Anyway, you can find them all on YouTube. It's the band Lokella is on everything. Well, not everything. Facebook, Instagram. We don't really use Twitter, but we're on there. YouTube, and then I am personally on TikTok. It's a lot of ridiculous stuff. A lot of dog content. If you like dogs, that's the place to be. That's just Jen with 2 N's, JENN_Lokella. And we've already released 2 singles from this upcoming album, and they both have music videos. The first one, I believe, for you, ridiculous vampire themed, really funny for us to film. Hopefully funny for you to watch. The second one, Just 19, with my good friend Emily Petersmark. She was featured on the song. She's in it's actually kind of like a folk band called the Crane Wives. Incredible musician. Her voice is beautiful. So we released a video for that just a couple days ago. And then the day of the album release, we will have one more video release. That is for the song called Same Old. And then we'll have more music videos after the release that we're really excited about. I've got lots of plans, some funny, some not as funny, but hopefully all good. And that's it.
That's it. Oh, hopefully all good. Now it's time for me to end this podcast with 3 very specific things. So first things first. Yes, As We Unravel comes out on May 13th, 2022. So likely by the time this podcast comes out, it will be out. So you're going to want to go and listen. You're going to want to watch music videos. You're going to want to get in the know with Lokella on all platforms as much as possible. So, you're going to want to go to those social media platforms. You're going to want to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're going to want to watch those videos. You're going to want to stream them, buy them, download them, buy merch wherever you can to get into Lokella and do all that kind of stuff. But I know convenience is always a key thing, so you're not going to want to actually have to search all this stuff up, right? You'd rather have me do all the legwork, right? So you're damn right I'm going to do all the legwork for you. Go to the description of the podcast, no matter what platform you're listening or watching on, find where it says Find Lokella Online. You're going to see labels, links, everything to get Lokella. So it's a one-click, one-stop shop on every little bit for social media, YouTube, streaming services where you can buy merch, where you can find them on the road, where you can get tickets, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be all there. So yeah, when it comes to finding Lokella, when it comes to listening to the As We Unravel album dropping on May 13th, which will probably be out by the time this podcast comes out, yeah, it's all there for you, making it as easy as possible. I don't know how I can make it easier for you. The only way I think I can make it easier for you is if I actually went to your house and went on your phone, went on your computer and liked all this stuff myself for you. But you know what? That's kind of weird. So I'm gonna do as best as I possibly can and make it as easy as possible for you guys. If you want me to come to your house though and go on your computer and all this stuff and help you stream As We Unravel, might be going on a long tour for that one. But I could use some time off of work.
Hopefully you're getting paid for that. That takes a lot of time.
Hopefully. So the second thing now, Jennifer, whenever I've guests on the podcast I've enjoyed having on the podcast, I tend to make a certain promise to them. And this has happened on every single time I've had a guest on the podcast. Every single time this has happened. And I would have to say, before we even hit the record button, I knew that this was just going to keep on rolling. So, Jennifer, my promise to you is this. You know what? No. It doesn't start out with if. If implies possibility of not happening. I don't like that. I like to say when. When implies this is going to happen. But right now, date, time, we don't freaking know. So, this is how the promise goes. It is when I get to see you perform live for the first time with Lokella. My promise to you is this. First round's on me.
Okay. Deal. Only if I can get the second round.
Deal.
Okay. I like to play it fair and square.
Perfect. I always like to do these promises as a way to, say thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for making the music. And also because, I don't want this to be the only time I ever talk to you or see you or connect you in any sort of way. So that's what I make promise. On top of that, in the future as well, should we do another one of these podcasts and bring on the rest of the guys for that?
Hell yeah.
Yep. So got to make sure that keeps on rolling. So that's what the promise happens. So now it's time for number 3. So Jennifer, closing out this podcast by saying goodbye. That I also don't like because that's way too final. And I don't like the finality of that because, hell, I made the promise. I want to have you back on the podcast once again with the rest of the guys. So saying goodbye doesn't really fit my shtick. So we're going to end it by saying this. I'll see you later.
Hey, you know what? Thanks for having me. And I can't wait to be back. Thank you so much. And I'll see you soon.
See you later. Woo! Well, folks, I'm interviewing with Jen from the band Lokella. Once again, their brand new As We Unravel is out now. So go and check it out right at the conclusion of this podcast. So when it comes to finding Lokella online, where they're going to be playing live shows, how to connect them on social media, watch those drunk history of Lokella YouTube videos, watch their, music videos, connect them in every given way. Links and labels for everything they have are in the description of the podcast. So you can go click and like, share, subscribe, download, stream, buy some merch, buy tickets, anything you might need to get to know with Lokella is all down there for you. Also want to make sure that you're checking out the Chord Progression podcast as well online. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. TikTok's got the funny, super cuts for the podcast, so you're not going to want to miss out on those. So go and check those out for sure. On top of that, follow us, subscribe to those channels. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can watch all of these podcast interviews. You can see us interact with the artists. It's a lot of fun. That's probably the best way to watch podcasts. If you just want to listen, though, I understand. That's chill. You can listen to Spotify Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Amazon. All links to the podcast. If you're already subscribed to the podcast, I want to give you a big thank you. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you just don't feel like if you just want to stick around for this episode, I want to say thank you for watching this episode. Thank you for listening since one and sticking around with us. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Phoenix Fitness and Custody Abuse for sponsoring the podcast. Link is and their promo code in the description of the podcast. Also want to remind you again, when we were Hungry Festival, October 20th and 21st in Las Vegas, Nevada. Viva Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas. Okay, that's me trying to be Robin Williams in Good Morning Vietnam impersonating Elvis Presley. It did not go well for me because, I can't do those impersonations very well. It's really not in my repertoire. But you're going to want to get tickets for when We Were Hungry Fest. Pancakes in the Pit, everyone. Come mosh with me for 2 days. It's going to be a blast. Don't miss out on some great bands. Turn memes into dreams, baby. Website and description of the podcast as well for you guys to check out. So I want to thank Jen for coming on the podcast. Next time, Lokella is on the podcast. We'll have the rest of the band on there as well. And we're going to have one hell of a fun time. I mean, hell, we might do drunk history podcasts with them. That'd be a lot of fun. So on that note, that's going to be for me, guys. You're watching to the Chord Progression podcast. My name is Kevin. And you guys know how I end every single one of these episodes with a big, healthy, and hearty. See